it. People are at home. People are using these different delivery services to take advantage of the fact that they need to be shelter in place here in a lot of these major markets across the country. I'm assuming that leads to increased demand and increased people talking about the better and the worse of these services across social media.
Yeah, it does. It's a huge opportunity for these companies. I think the world is much more prepared for this than it was 6 or 7 years ago. That's for sure. And it's because of these companies that offer delivery. We've got. It's obvious. I mean, everybody's getting something delivered. Everybody's getting food delivered. And different things. So what at LikeFolio we try to do is, aside from the obvious, we're trying to figure out who's winning, what is popping more than other things, and doing it in a comparative fashion. And so when we look at overall food delivery mentions, of course, that is massively up and to the right, big spike as people are forced to stay at home or just decide that going out and even getting curbside is not for them. And so that's a given. But what isn't a given is who's winning and who's losing. And, right now I found it very interesting that generic food delivery at this point is up 108% year over year. So it's more than doubled in terms of the number of people talking about getting food delivered. But pizza is only up 14%. So it really hasn't increased people's appetite for pizza that much. And then on the other side of things, grocery delivery, we're seeing a triple or even quadruple in terms of the number of mentions on that. And so people are really starting to utilize these grocery services in a big way. Food delivery is doing very well. We're seeing DoorDash really leading the way in terms of growth above Uber Eats, above Grubhub. And a lot of that has to do with their partnership with Chipotle. And, Chipotle is one of the leaders that we're seeing really come to the forefront here. They're offering free delivery basically throughout the quarantine to anybody that they can deliver to who's willing to spend $10 with them. They're doing great things in terms of delivering to healthcare workers. They've just really been ahead of this, and we're very well prepared to take advantage of a situation like this. So that's the way we look at things. We look at not just, is this trend happening? Of course it is, but who is benefiting the most? And at this point, we can safely say that pizza companies are not in that category, but companies like Chipotle and DoorDash definitely are.
Andy, my question to you is, even though we know that the delivery numbers are going up, I can definitely connect the dots there. But is a place like Chipotle, are they doing more business in general? I understand the delivery part's up, but what's the relationship between the walk-in that's zero and the delivery? Are their overall numbers going up in this environment, or just the delivery going up and the overall numbers are soft? Do you have any data on something like that?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I think it's definitely soft on an overall basis. There's just, less foot traffic and that sort of thing. And grocery is really eating into that. I mean, people are getting groceries delivered to home in large quantities, and they're cooking at home much more than they used to in terms of relying on outside third parties to make, 1 or 2 meals per day for them. So we definitely see a softening across the board. It's just we're seeing that Chipotle is probably benefiting on a net basis more than others are losing. And so when you run those comparisons, that's the way that we think about it. Everybody's certainly taking a hit on this. Chipotle, no exception, but they're taking less of a hit than a lot of their competitors, and probably will be in a strong place coming back, because remember, with each of these delivery mechanisms, that is a customer that Chipotle now knows how to contact in the future, whereas before you might have just gone in there and bought what you needed, run your credit card, sat down and ate, and they have no idea how to contact you again. Now they're building a list of people that is enormous, that they can tap into in the future, that they can run specials to in the future, and drive traffic through the front door once that becomes available.
Yeah, that's interesting in terms of gathering that data so they can kind of follow up on that. I've never thought of it that way. So really great info there. But kind of a two-part question here, Andy. How much of the grocery delivery and the trends in terms of people really using these services for delivery right now because of shelter in place do you think has kind of been a saving grace for a lot of these companies that were kind of struggling, to be fair? And then on the other side of this, how many of the, like what you just said, people at home cooking, whether that's through, delivery from, Instacart, and they're just making things from scratch or following online, menus, or even using things like Blue Apron and HelloFresh, how much of that do you think sticks on the other side? Or do people just go back to Chipotle, go back to Wendy's and Chick-fil-A on the other side of this, and everything's back to like it was beforehand?
Yeah, I think in terms of what happens on the other side of this, it's really difficult to know, because you don't even know when this will end. So one of the things we're really trying to look at LikeFolio and just starting to dive into, and we'll probably be reporting on pretty soon, is what is that pent up demand for these companies? So, what are people really missing and that they're likely to go out to right as it starts up? If I were in Chicago right now, I'd be talking about how much I can't wait to go back into a Lou Malnati's, for example, stuff like that. That pent up demand, we're trying to start measuring. It's very difficult because there's a lot of noise in the data because so many people are just talking about this new experience of getting things delivered. But I do think overall, the consumer is getting more comfortable with, the resurgence of kind of cooking your meals at home, which is kind of a nice throwback for a lot of people. We see a lot of positive commentary around sitting with the family at the dinner table for the first time in a long time, that becoming part of a routine. So I do think that there's an expectation in this data that's building that the recovery will be softer for a lot of these providers of out of the home food services. I think people are taking a second look at their lifestyles and are starting to, see some of the positives of this, and that could hurt some of these companies going forward. But again, it's the ones right now that are taking advantage of a bad situation in a positive way, and building a list of people that they can contact in the future and run specials to that I think will benefit the most on the other side of this.
Kevin, I want to pull you back in here because what I'm hearing from Andy is, maybe people are going to have a little bit more of an appreciation for how things were before, all these, shifts in lifestyle that have been kind of taking place across the world. And, maybe some of this stuff sticks, but either way, there's going to be a new appreciation. I think it's smart, though, to see some of the things Chipotle is doing to stay relevant. And maybe that's something that, the little mom and pop shop couldn't do. And they've kind of fallen, to the wayside here. And that's where I think the real struggle is going to be. But thoughts on, everything that we've talked about here and any other questions you might have for Andy?
I have one last question for Andy, and it's kind of tying in our second subject with our first subject with JJ Kinahan. And that is, Andy, I agree with you that people making food at home and that softness may continue into the future, but something that may not change and may change for the ongoing future is delivery of groceries and how Walmart delivers their groceries and how 50% of their revenue is from groceries. Could you see once like people that never got groceries delivered before that are getting them delivered now, they may not go back to going into the brick and mortar store. They may stay with getting their groceries delivered as opposed to going there. Do you see anything about that where different from fast food delivery, but grocery delivery?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's an enormous factor here. And one of the things that we're really watching closely with LikeFolio data is how happy are customers with this experience. And so for Walmart, the grocery experience, for Chipotle, these experiences have been very positive. And so we do see that sticking around afterwards. And as this goes on, it's easy to talk positively about someone that's bringing you groceries during a quarantine early on in the process. But then like everything else, you start to get used to it and your expectations start to grow. And so we'll really be watching closely over the next 4 weeks throughout April. Can these companies, with the scale that they're growing at, can they maintain these levels of customer happiness? And if so, we see that as a very good sign that loyalty will be there afterwards and that the behavior is is going to become a permanent shift. If not, if we start to see, major declines in consumer happiness or a big uptick in the number of people complaining about grocery delivery, then that changes everything, and that means that these on a company by company basis, it may mean that that company's disappointing people and will not be able to make the shift permanent. So that's a key factor that we're watching for, that we'll bring to TD Ameritrade Network on a regular basis throughout April, because I think, again, that first little window, it's really easy to be happy that anyone's bringing you anything and just take what you can get. But as things wear on, expectations tend to grow, and we'll see who's delivering on that consumer expectation and who's not.
No, I think that's a really great point. We will come back to that. From what you're seeing so far, at least on the service provider side, whether that's your Postmates, your DoorDash, as you saw, was clearly the winner right now in terms of at least use. Is there a winner in terms of happiness right now of those major service providers?
I think that all of them are doing pretty well, to be honest, and we've seen that throughout. I think, again, a big part of that is just, I'm glad somebody's bringing me food right now, and that's that's a good starting point for a lot of people, and I tend to agree with that. And then now we'll start to get more picky, but I think that all of these companies are doing a pretty good job. DoorDash is definitely the winner in terms of the positive spin that their partnership with Chipotle has done a very good job for them. I think Postmates lagging behind is a little bit disappointing. Grubhub lagging behind is a little disappointing. Uber looks like a pretty good winner coming out of this, but we'll see.